Hi everyone, this is Sarah Jean Gosney. So today I wanted to talk a little bit about self-esteem. It's something that psychologists and indeed feminists have been harping on for years now, that America's youth has very low self-esteem. They are usually talking about this as an issue for young girls, but it's really an issue for young boys and young men as well, perhaps even more so than for young girls. So the way that psychologists and feminists would have you believe self-esteem works is that it all comes from an internal force. Basically, talking to yourself the right way, mentally and when you speak about yourself in the world. This is simply untrue. I'm sorry to tell you, but no amount of body positivity or telling yourself that you love yourself in the mirror is going to give you a healthy self-esteem. At least not without some external validation and physical support for those ideas. Self-esteem really comes from both internal and external validation for skills or beauty or your beliefs. It's not something that you can just talk yourself into. So, where does low self-esteem come from anyway? I mean, it's really a myriad of things, and while the media can play into it in that if all you're doing is comparing yourself to others on social media, their edited, filtered, perfected version of themselves, then you're probably going to feel bad about yourselves. And part of that is because of the comparison, and part of that is because you're not spending that time doing something constructive. Other components of low self-esteem, there are lots of birds out today. Other components of low self-esteem would be not having any or very few positive role models or mentors. So without having someone show you through their actions and their words how to be a good person, how to be a successful person, it's going to be very hard for any young person to determine what that will look like for them. We all need some kind of concrete, physical guidance as to what we need to do with our lives. This ties into the fact that most young people have little to no spiritual or moral guidance for their behavior. And this goes hand in hand with the role models, in that having good spiritual and moral guidance is a role model in itself. It's a model of a higher authority of good behavior and righteous behavior. And whether that is through religion or through a secular ethics doesn't really matter. I, of course, am a proponent of religion, but I think people can really succeed with secular ethics as well. Another common factor for people with low self-esteem is that they have very little sense of accomplishment in their lives. They don't have the sense that they're constantly improving themselves, that they're moving in a forward direction. And that's usually because they're not taking any action to do so. They also get very little external validation for their skills, their looks, their beliefs, and their achievements, if they do have any. And we all have some sort of achievement, whether it's simply just going up and getting up for work and going to a job every day. And some people with low self-esteem even do have skills, but they're not socially acceptable, or maybe they're socially acceptable, but they're not socially valued. For example, there are certain men who like to build models, like model airplanes, and they could be really very skilled at this and spend a lot of their free time doing it, but that might not give them as much self-esteem as another activity simply because it's not as socially valued as some other activities would be. So what does it look like to have healthy self-esteem? That's pretty much you take the opposite path of what I just mentioned and you'll be on your way. So having multiple positive role models and mentors, ideally your parents will be the first two of these, aunts and uncles, teachers, ideally, religious figures, aunts and uncles, just any extended family, a neighbor, anyone that you might learn an instrument from, or a sport, anything like that, a coach, you can really find healthy role models in a lot of places in life. And so it's really best to have multiple different ones related to and not in your family. People with good self-esteem also have a strong spiritual and moral grounding. They know when their actions are right. And by right, I mean not just correct in a yes or no kind of way, but with a bit more gravity, that their actions are promoting a better world, essentially, in a small way. So they know they can basically look at each of their decisions and say, is this morally correct? And if so, I'm going to do it. If not, I won't. And they have an internal system that will alert them to that if it's well ingrained. They also have skills that have social capital. I mentioned playing sports or an instrument. Those are very common skills with high social capital. Most people enjoy watching sports or listening to an instrument, so if you're able to do those things, it's very commonly valued. And it's easy to get a sense of self-esteem from that if other people believe in your skills and enjoy them as much as you do. People with good self-esteem also have a constant sense of self-improvement. So self-esteem is really not just a state of being, it's a state of change, really. It's moving forward in the right direction every day. And you can take steps backward. Of course, we all get setbacks. So it's not about being good or being right or being successful all the time. It's about constantly attempting to move forward and to evolve, despite any challenges that might come your way. Of course, as I mentioned, people with self-esteem also get external validation in many ways, whether it's for their looks, their beliefs, or their skills, or their achievements. You can't just tell yourself you're beautiful. You have to have some kind of external support of that beauty, whether it's someone telling you that or people giving you romantic attention, something that validates that, to where your internal self-worth matches up with your external feedback. As for achievements, well, with anything really, you need to have that, the meeting of the external and the internal esteem. Because if you have one and not the other, you can't build a sense of self-worth on that. If you don't think your accomplishments are worthwhile, or you feel like you didn't earn them, it doesn't matter how many awards you might win, you're not going to have a healthy sense of self-esteem. You're just going to feel like a fraud. And if you tell yourself constantly, or even if you believe on some level that you are great and have great achievements, if you don't receive any signals from the world that that's true, then eventually the doubt is going to prevail in your mind, because too many things are telling you that no, you're not really as successful as you think you are. So it's really about having that balance of internal and external validation. So I hope this gives you an idea of what self-esteem is based on, and that it's really not just about positive self-talk or positive thinking, as a lot of psychologists would lead you to believe, and it's not just ruined by the media, as feminists would have you believe. It's really a confluence of things, and there are a lot of concrete steps you can take to increasing your self-esteem if you do have issues with it. It's not a state of being, it's a state of change. I hope you all have a great day.